Bolster your immune system, help alleviate stress. Take in those minerals and vitamins that you really need, nutrients like vitamin B, omega fatty acids 3, 6, and 9, and many more nutrients. More Beauty now offers hemp seed oil. We all know that health is wealth. We must do all we can to maintain it. More Beauty offers 100% hemp seed oil, a natural option. Hemp seed oil, available from More Beauty. Order yours today from the embassyofthemoors.org. The embassyofthemoors.org. Or you can click whatever y'all do nowadays, whatever you got to do to capture the QR code on the screen there on the bottom right hand side of the bottle that I'm holding in my hand. 4 ounces, a 4-ounce bottle of More Beauty's 100% hemp seed oil. And again, I still have to re-up, but I still got some left. Got to take my dose for the day, my little bit. But I'm getting started, getting underway here in just a few moments here. The way that you will know that is that I will play the ticker just before I get started. So I'll be up and ready to go in just a few. I won't get into the subjects yet. Well, yeah, I guess I will. I'm reflecting on some past career experiences that I've had in the fold in public service as a deputy sheriff. If some of y'all might be interested in that. I hope so anyway, because my intention is just to share experiences and share my point of view when it comes to some things dealing with police conduct, police contact, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, we're going to get underway just momentarily as I punch some buttons. I don't even know what I'm going to call this though, but I'm going to have the overlays here anyway. As it occurs to me. Yeah, as it occurs to me, because it doesn't sound too final. But I'll be back in just a few seconds. Let me go ahead and twist some knobs and we'll get going. Okay. Hey, what's happening, everybody? What is going on with you? I hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, I'm doing as well as can be suspected or expected for a Tuesday. Not bad for a Tuesday. Anyhow, as I was preparing for this, there's a few things that kind of came to my attention also that actually are going to be things I'm going to add to the show today. But first of all, I want to, of course, thank the Most High for allowing me to have the ability and the faculties and such to bring this presentation today. I started out today by getting notification from those people that, well, somebody, I guess, what do you call it? I didn't get a strike. I didn't get a copyright strike, as I've kind of have gotten used to before, and I thought I got away from. It's not a copyright strike, for what I understand. What it was a grievance, I guess, for a track that I played, which is funny because, well, I've kind of flipped the script and have been playing my own loops here since I've reformatted everything. And they're telling me that such disclaimers like what I have here in the window on the screen right now. And for those of you who are just listening that might catch this on the podcast later on, the views and opinions expressed on this platform within this presentation are solely those of the individuals participating. This presentation may contain copyrighted material, and such material is made available for educational, informative, and entertainment purposes only, constituting quote unquote fair use as outlined in Section 107 of Title 17 U.S. or United States Code of United States Copyright Law. So, even though you say that you don't intend to infringe on copyright, even though you say, well, other people do it, why can't I? Well, apparently it's still something that can, draw a grievance. But I answered it accordingly. I disputed it because, well, like I said, any of these loops that I play, and I have a number of them that I've created myself, they're mine. So, I don't know what it is. And I haven't really started really touching in on anything too controversial yet as far as topic or subject matter. But I intend to do that eventually. Hello, I'm your host. You know who this is, hopefully by now. I am Dolph, the Learning More Chronicles, Learn More Truth. And I come to you today to have a discussion, which I am trying to do consistently, at least hopefully like 2 days a week, maybe special bulletins in between. But I'm almost to the point where I can tell you that we can count on having this discussion twice a week. At least I'm hoping so. So far it seems that the parts are starting to add up, that it's going to be likely for me to do this on a consistent basis as scheduled. What the show is titled today is reflecting on past career experiences, I think it says. So I would like to reflect on my past experience, which is pretty vast. And, well, it's a past experience I had in my 20s, and it was in police work. I actually wound up retiring from law enforcement after doing it for a period of time. And to be honest, I kind of got fed up with it. And I wanted to move on and do something else with my life. However, it's tough when you decide to make such what you think is a clean break, especially when you have other things to consider, such as, family, personal expenses and things like that. Because we were going to relocate anyway, but what it ended up happening is, it was a disruption. It was actually somewhat of a disruption to my livelihood when I decided to change careers when I did, actually. And it wasn't without regret, because the money was okay, but like I always say, it is what it is. So let's see here. What should we start with? I guess let me take this down. First of all, I want to say thanks to those of you out there who might catch this live or might catch this later. Just in general, what I typically will do is I'll do a show live, maybe possibly depending on the momentum and the amount of people that might be viewing this or taking a listen live to me. I might have guests appear on the show. I'm not beyond that. Matter of fact, I would actually like to encourage for people, and I welcome people on to, conversate, possibly converse with me on this. Not that I'm lonely or anything like that, not that I'm a control freak either. But what I'm interested in doing is generating conversation. So there's all the housekeeping right there. Facebook at To Be Moorish, which is, I believe, the Learn More Truth page that I have on Facebook, Learning More Chronicles on YouTube, and well, down at the bottom is the Cash App. Closed mouths do not get fed, and it does take a bit of financial resources at some measure. And I know it's hard times for everybody. I know that firsthand. I mean, things could be worse, but I'm treading water right now, folks. But and I know so many people are not in the same position as I am. However, I would like to be in a position that I could help others at some point, but that's a long way off. So that being said, no amount is too small. So if you could find your way towards dropping, like a couple of bucks on my Cash App as a donation, I would appreciate it. I don't quite have the 503c1 or anything like that, but it wouldn't work for me as a personally declared more anyway. But that's another show. So anyway, let me get started here. I guess I've delayed long enough. No, actually, I'm right on time because I originally stated that I was going to start at 12:45 my time from a secret location, undisclosed location here on the Central Time frame, which is where I produce this show. At first, I was hesitant about calling it a show, but it is what it is, like I always say. Let me see here. So, I go along this unscripted, so you have to bear with me. If you hear some paperwork shuffling around or paper shuffling, that just means I'm going over some notes that I took, right? And what I'm doing is just trying to touch bases on certain things, and I think we'll go ahead and get started. So right here, this is my class academy picture. I'm not sure if you can make me out, but I appear on the top row. And in the middle, there was the other melanated individual down on the first row of cadets behind the people that are seated. And at the very front, far right, second from the very right, seated is a chief of police. So that being said, it's a very exclusive industry to be in, a very exclusive line of work to be in. First of all, I actually earned everything I got to achieve that position and get to where I've gotten to this point right now to say that I'm a retiree. That's not to say that it's that I'm wealthy or well off from that, but it provided a pretty decent living for me. And I tend to avoid saying you have to understand, because you don't have to understand anything that I say. I'm just conveying a point, presenting a point of view from a lived experience that I had in my 20s. And it's afforded me certain opportunities in life. And I'm not here to by default say that I support the profession blindly, because I've never been an advocate for police abuses. I've never been just blindly supportive of the profession just because. And I'm here to tell you that the thin blue line is a misnomer. The thin blue line of secrecy that people talk about, that you hear in mainstream media, that's completely embellished, is truly a fallacy. But, it says, as what we see around in social media, we see these images, right? If not all cops are bad, why don't the good cops do anything about the bad cops? Well, I'm here to tell you that they do. I'm here to tell you that they do. And I was actually one of them. I'm not saying I was one of the good ones. I'm not saying I was one of the greatest ones, but I if you were around me and you were working with me, and my name was on the roster, on the duty roster. Check, check. My name was on the duty roster. Well, that meant that you were kept safe for the night, that I was someone that was competent to do the job. And I'm not bragging when I say this. You have to prove yourself to be competent because you're handling rather dynamic situations. You're thrust into situations, most of the time, negative situations. A lot of the times, negative situations. A lot of times, tedious situations. I mean, it's been said that to typify police work, what it is what? What police work? Okay. What police work actually is, or can be on the day to day, is persistent moments of tedium punctuated by sheer terror. That's pretty much it. That pretty much sums it up. And what I did not know were a number of things that people, with the advent of social media, people bring forth to really, talk about that they think occurs in policing, right? Now, was I conscious of who I was then? Did I know that I was, well, Moorish at the time? Because I didn't have any consciousness of being a Moor. I can't tell you that I was conscious of being a Moor. But at the time, I knew, of course, that I was black. They saw me coming. They instantly saw me coming. I mean, being of lighter hue, but still, the way I carried myself, the way that I spoke, things along those lines, one could reasonably articulate that, yeah, his ethnicity, was non-European, Asiatic, melanated, black, African American. That's the way it was for me then. As a matter of fact, it was probably a way for me to have gotten on or gotten accepted after I had applied for a position with over 4,000 candidates. And the attrition rate at that time that I had applied for the gig was somewhere in upwards of about 3% from applicant to academy complete to field trainee complete. I made all those phases. And it ended up working a good portion of my career in the field on patrol, as well as working in a custodial environment, that being a county lockup. As a matter of fact, 2 or 3 different county lockups. And I was exposed to a lot. I saw a lot. I did a lot. I was involved in a lot. I was active because it was part of my livelihood. I'm not expecting for people to readily accept what it is I have to say about the career, but it was a good profession for me because I believed I was doing the right thing. I grew up with the frame of mind that you got yourself a decent job that paid a decent wage. And this career happened to cross my lap because, well, when I honorably discharged from the military, which is something that we as Moors are not supposed to do, right? I mean, I remember a movie, motion picture, a number of years ago, Boys in the Hood. And I've heard it being discussed in lectures and stuff like that about how, we're not supposed to be in this corporation's army or military forces. But I ran out of options coming out of high school. Even before I got out of high school, I signed up for military enlistment. It was back during the Reagan administration, by the way, to give you some frame of reference. Didn't have the internet technology that we have today. And I grew up in a region of the country where the only way to really make it is either you worked a job or you got fortunate, perhaps worked in the entertainment industry at some capacity. But there weren't any opportunities for me growing up, really. And I grew up believing that, yes, this has this history of tyranny and that, and jamming people up, and its issues with racism and that. But my mindset was that I was going to try to get in and make a difference. I was going to try to get in it, do what I could to support my own livelihood, and try to make a difference. So was I conscious of who I was then? No, not fully. Did I go out every shift to purposely oppress people? And I'll tell you, I didn't. I didn't. I really took a defensive posture, and that's how I was trained, and that's how I believed my role would be, because it was about getting home the same way that you arrived to work. You did what you were trained to do, but you did temper it with life experience. And I believe that's what got me by. That was helpful to me anyway. Was I doing the work of Rome under a fictional guise, exercising colorable law? See, colorable law, and was it all fictitious? Being in my early to mid 20s, I had no idea what colorable law really was. I mean, if you want to say that laws were instituted, that they were colorable to be law, I mean, it just depends on what your definition of colorable is. And I'm not going to pull out a dictionary today exactly. I'm not going to pull out, the third or fourth edition, which I have access to, but I'm not going to pull out the Black's Law Dictionary, because that's applicable in court during court proceedings to determine the context of how things are going to go in court. Law dictionaries are applicable in situations where law is applied. So no, I don't at all buy into it that I was representing something fictional. Because I was sworn in under the Constitution of the state where I practiced police work. I was also sworn in under the Constitution of the United States. Are those colorable documents? No, I don't believe they are. Was I among the walking dead under law? Am I still now dead? Well, it depends on whom you ask. If you ask somebody that is an adept, right? That's fully involved in more science, that actually can quote law to you, chapter and verse, along with the Circle 7, Moorish Holy Quran, along with scripture from the Big Quran, along with Moorish literature, along with the Moorish Constitution and bylaws, and the 101s. Sure. Even if that person may not be sovereign, even if that person that is a full-on Moorish adept is still paying property taxes, if they still have a driver's license but not telling you about it. Of course, I'm going to appear to have worked under colorable law because of what their definition of it is, because they perceive they have more of an understanding of what colorable law is versus the understanding of someone that was 20 something years old and seeking gainful employment that came with a retirement pension. So it depends on whom you ask. Have I received formal training, and have I experienced or had I encountered rather had I encountered experiences with those who were considered sovereign or were constitutionalists? Yes, I have. A number of times throughout my career, I've had contact with those who don't go by the laws of the United States corporation. They consider themselves to be sovereigns. They've considered themselves to be constitutionalists. Professional litigants is what they're pretty much termed. Because you stop them as a representative yourself of a sovereign state, a representative of the people within that particular sovereign state. And you contact these people that consider themselves to be foreign to that. Of course, that merits inquiry. Of course, that merits a closer looking into, which is what I had been involved in certain situations. The outcomes ended up being from, completing a field interview card to hauling somebody in and letting the judge prove and ascertain if there was any laws broken and come up with that disposition. Because yes, you are going on the assumption, because everyone has a right to innocence until proven guilty. So there's an assumption that a crime has occurred, is occurring, based on the elements. In the purview of my ethnicity, considering myself at the time Black, African American, was I a sellout? Was I a sellout against my own people? I don't even know if I can even give that question a dignified answer, but the answer is no. Again, as I've spoken earlier about, I was just a guy that got out of the military, honorably discharged, part of the system, right? Military enlistment, honorably discharged by age 21, and was looking for a career thereafter because I didn't want to spend my whole life in the military. Some people do. Hats off to them. Some people make a career out of it. A number of my personal friends did. They ended up staying longer than I did, and they retired. But when you're in a situation, individual situation where you have no options, you have to decide how much you're going to put up with, if you're going to conform or not. Because we all conform. All of us do. If you step outside and put on clothes every day, you've just conformed. So we all have to conform to something. Final question here, just to start things off. Was I brainwashed then? And am I an agent now? The only agent I am is an agent for change, an agent for liberation. I'm just here to do my part, just to share the knowledge that I acquire and can pass on to whomever wants to listen. But aside from that, no. I wasn't brainwashed. I just knew I had to conform to an established standard. Members of my family, they wanted best for me. They wanted better for me. And I personally thought that was the way to go about it. by pursuing a career at what had been a noble profession, and really still is. But anyway, let me take about a 5 minute break. I'm going to get set up for this segment just a little bit more, get some audio for you. Be right back. All right, here we go back again for some more. Back for some more. Back to the show. All right, where did I leave off? Where did I leave off here? Let's see. Yeah. So here I was. That's me. Just over 10 years ago or so. Getting ready to go out and hit the bricks. Well, actually, no. Actually, I'm already out. Somebody took a picture for me. They were nice enough. We didn't it's just me in the car. We didn't I worked for an agency that only had one per unit. So I was able to generate my own activity as far as, what I wanted to do in between radio calls. So that, I don't know. That was my pretty much normal mode of activity, just going out and in between calls, just making observation stops and things like that. But yeah, the question that I even had in my own mind, when did the wholesome type of street cop is portrayed in TV shows like Adam 12. We know how TV is, the old Adam 12, and I grew up watching that. Idealistic, very idealistic. And at the time, as is the same way now, Los Angeles Police Department, they've been undergoing a long history of, well, PR, trying to improve their public persona, if you will, but it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. For one reason, public trust has long been eroded throughout history, throughout time. Because, well, for whatever reason, other than, just people's ineptitude, and they're just like in any career field, you have, well, bad people that don't necessarily fulfill the intentions of what the job actually is or what it should represent. So let me see here. Give me a second or two. I'm going to find something to share with y'all that goes along the lines and context of what I'm speaking of. Let's see here. Oh, that's right. Give me a second. There was something that actually prompted me to have the conversation here today. Here we go. Here it is right here. Give me a second. I'm going to share the screen here momentarily once everything gets up and going. Yeah. Thanks for bearing with me. Screen share. Share the screen. So yeah, in recent years, civilianized policing has become more militarized. A lot of federal money's been thrown at it. But on the other hand, you have people out there that are engaged in wrongdoing who have weapons to do you harm. Right? So this is why, in most cases, well, that a lot of agencies have decided that they were justified in acquiring such methods or devising such methods and such, and utilizing pretty much almost like paramilitary weapons, firearms, and that. So actually, I had switched. Here it is. Here. Let me see here. Let me share the screen with y'all. I found exactly what I was looking for, and I want to share the screen with you momentarily. Bada bing, bada boom. Here we go. Let's see what point this might illustrate to y'all.
What's that? In the car? All right, partner. He wants to talk to you out here. Is that all your? Yeah. I'll watch him for you. He's all right. I got babies. Oh, you got a dog too? Hell. I'll make sure they're all right. I got babies too, man. Huh? Okay. Shit! Shit! Overhead!
Now, as you can see and hear from the video, this was an extremely violent ambush that both of our deputies and the occupants of the vehicle were extremely blessed to survive. This individual had absolutely no regard for human life and was focused on only one thing: killing our deputies to avoid arrest, as he knew he was facing several minimum mandatory prison sentences in his pending cases. As you can see, the subject not only fired numerous rounds at our deputies, but also, after his gun jam, used the butt of the rifle to violently and repeatedly strike Deputy Potters in the head, causing significant injuries and lacerations. Let there be no doubt, this individual got exactly what he deserved. And to those out there who might be foolish enough to ask why we shot him so many times, that answer is simple: because evil can never be dead enough.
What's that?
So, really, I mean, sure, it's an unpopular point of view to have, especially in this climate nowadays, where there's such a drive to defund the police. But what you have here in this particular instance is someone that, well, you heard him say it, they had a lack of regard for other people. And the thing of it is, too, well, they didn't want to be accountable. They didn't want to be held accountable for the acts that they committed or were believed to have committed. So it says Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey speaks bold words following a recent officer-involved shooting. The unfortunate reality of working in the semi-permissive environment deputies deal with every day, where a routine traffic stop can quickly and violently change. Those of us who have worked for some time in the business, who have been trained at it and certified to do it, will tell you that there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. No such thing. And that's where the thin blue line comes in. The thin blue line means that it's a thin line between civility and anarchy. And what you had here in this situation from just a few days ago, within the past week or so, I think it was within that time frame, was someone crossing that line. You heard the discussion. There was a pet in the vehicle. There were children in the vehicle as well. And this individual saw fit to open fire the way he did. As you can hear during the exchange, Deputy Potters calls out, "I'm hit," as he retreats to his vehicle looking for cover. As the suspect moves around the patrol car looking to finish what he had started, his weapon's jammed and he begins assaulting Deputy Potters with the butt of the gun. So what he was starting was an all-out assault. And what's clear when you're, in a situation involving firearms is that someone's out to kill you. Someone is actually out to kill you. And, well, the problem that they were posed with had to be ended. It had to be brought to a halt. Imminent danger, imminent threat, loss of life was certain. Officer Thoman then maneuvers around the downed deputy and takes the fatal shots into the suspect to end the fight. I wouldn't expect anyone to do this, though. I mean, this is on the Facebook page, and this is a question that I would also like to ask. Now, put yourself in the shoes of the mindset of Deputy Thoman. What is your primary course of action based on the injuries seen and suspected? What is your casualty care plan? But the average, everyday, ordinary individual does not have to face anything like that. It's the person, the individual, the person within that uniform, that's duty bound to handle each and every situation that's assigned to them. Whether it's to render aid directly or get them to some help, even if it means a temporary violation of someone's freedom by taking them into physical custody and conveying them safely, what you're supposed to do when you take someone into custody, expeditiously and safely to a custodial institution for them to be held until they appear in court, to be accountable. Did I want to do it? Not necessarily. I didn't want to, I wasn't of the mindset where everybody had to go to jail, that I had to write a ticket to everyone that I contacted and stopped. Some of my colleagues, perhaps, and I had talks with those colleagues about how to go about doing the job. And I was trained to be, well, firm but fair. And that stuck with me for a long time. And it's something I carry with me throughout my life. I got another screen share for you. Give me just a second. I have to drop this. And I'm going to share this with you because this is something that I wanted to add onto this. Well, it's not really a two-way discussion, but just presenting my point of view, right? So I'm going to share my screen again about this right here. Let's see here.
I was just at the grocery store and this girl walked up to me and she said, "I've seen your videos. And I got to tell you, my brother's a cop and he's a good person." Let's examine that for a moment, shall we? In 1704, the slave patrol is formed to get your slave back. They do a lot of lynching and murdering and beating and raping, but they're good people because they're slave patrol. Then after 1865, 1870, police literally become the lynching. Or they become the jailer who opens the door for the mob and you or your family member can be lynched. Then in 1954, when blacks were finally freed in America, from 1954 to 1968, police are absolute tyranny. And now after 68, you have a choice when you enter with police. You can either go to a dungeon or you can die. Terry policies are very specific and all police must follow them. The first step is you get on your knees. The second step is you get put in handcuffs and lay on your belly. The third step is they take you to a dungeon where you could lose your life. I'm sorry, honey. Your brother's not a good person. If you're a cop, you can't sign up for Terry policies and remain a good person. I'm sorry.
Terry policies, what the gentleman was referring to regarding Terry policies, right? What a Terry policy was a disposition of a case associated with Terry versus Ohio. Terry stop is another name for stop and frisk. The name was generated from the U.S. Supreme Court case. And we all know Supreme Court is actually the law of the land. They actually interpret law and institute it and have it instituted. They're the ones that interpret law. I'm going to open up the Terry law, the actual Terry versus Ohio itself. But so a Terry stop is another name for stop and frisk, but it depends on the jurisdiction that you're in. In New York, my understanding is that because of the population density, for whatever reason, and for the fact that they have a lot of or they've had a lot of cops on the beat, foot beat, walking, that they've instituted the practice. Yeah, it's, it may be found to be problematic as far as in terms of search and seizure, right? And I cannot say throughout my career that I actually practiced stop and frisk absent other elemental factors. Let's see if I can open this. So Terry v. Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar with that case because this is one of the cases that we discussed, that we studied in the academy, actually, and we went over. But it was argued in December 12, 1967, decided in 1968, June 10th. Judge Warren, if those of you who might not be familiar with Judge Warren, the Warren Commission, that basically wrote the ruling, or was the Warren Commission was associated with the Watts outcome of the Watts rebellion back in 1965. So this is the opinion delivered of the court. Point number one: this case presents serious questions concerning the role of the Fourth Amendment and the confrontation on the street between the citizen and the policeman investigating suspicious circumstances. So even if you walk up on something, or if you're called to a situation where there's suspicious activity, you're limited on what you can do. Petitioner Terry was convicted of carrying a concealed weapon and sentenced to the statutorily prescribed term of 1 to 3 years in the penitentiary. Following the denial of a pretrial motion to suppress, which is in California called a 1538 motion, the prosecution introduced into evidence 2 revolvers and a number of bullets seized from Terry and the co-defendant, Richard Chilton, by Cleveland Police Detective Martin McFadden. At the hearing on the motion to suppress this evidence, Officer McFadden testified that while he was patrolling in plain clothes in downtown Cleveland at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon on October 31, 1963, his attention was distracted by 2 men, Chilton and Terry, standing on the corner of Huron Road and Euclid Avenue. He had never seen the 2 men before, and he was unable to say precisely what first drew his eye to them. However, he testified that he had been a policeman for 39 years and a detective for 35, and that he had been assigned to patrol this vicinity of downtown Cleveland for shoplifters and pickpockets for 30 years. So it was pretty much targeted patrol. He articulated why he was there and tried to specify that there was a lawful reason for it. It goes on. He explained that he developed routine habits of observation over the years, and that he would, quote, stand and watch people or walk and watch people at many intervals of the day, end quote. He added, now this case, when I looked over, they didn't look right to me at the time. And that's usually in the business, that's pretty much called instinct, right? That's called instinct. Point number 3, his interest aroused. Officer McFadden took up a post of observation in the entrance to the store, 300 to 400 feet away from the 2 men. I get more purpose to watch them when I see their movements, he testified. He saw one of the men leave and the other one walk on southwest on Huron Road, past some stores. The man paused for a moment and looked into the store window, then walked a short distance, turned around, and walked back toward the corner, pausing once again to look in the same store window. He rejoined his companion at the corner, and the 2 conferred briefly. Then the second man went through the same series of motions, strolling down Huron Road, looking in the same window, walking a short distance, turning back, peering in the store window again, and returning to confer with the first man at the corner. The 2 men repeated this ritual alternatively between 5 and 6 times apiece in all, roughly a dozen trips. At one point, while the 2 were standing together on the corner, a third man approached them and engaged them briefly in conversation. This man then left the 2 others and walked west on Euclid Avenue. Chilton and Terry resumed their measured pacing, peering, and conferring. After this had gone on for about 10 to 12 minutes, the two men walked off together, heading west on Euclid Avenue, following the path taken earlier by the third man. Let me see how long this goes. Oh, I'm not going to read this whole thing. But essentially, that was the case, Terry versus Ohio. Just read a little bit of it from the Cornell Education website. So, when an officer has a reasonable suspicion that an individual is armed, engaged, or about to be engaged in criminal conduct, the officer may briefly stop and detain an individual for a pat-down search of outer clothing. Okay? A Terry stop is a seizure within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment. So the search cannot be unlawful in nature, right? I'm pulling out the Fourth Amendment in case my voice sounds a little bit distant and changing. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation. Ooh, excuse me. I need to drink water. Supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So a Terry stop is a seizure within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment, right? In a traffic stop setting, the Terry condition of a lawful investigatory stop is met whenever it is lawful for the police to detain an automobile and its occupants pending inquiry into a vehicular violation. The police do not need to believe that any occupant of the vehicle is involved in criminal activity. In a recent case, Floyd versus City of New York, A13F Supplement 2D 417, 2011, the court held that New York's stop and frisk policy violated the Fourth Amendment because it rendered stop and frisks more frequent for Blacks and Hispanics. So essentially what happened is that there was a creation of a protected class from this, because that's kind of what resulted from it in my eyes. So that's a Terry stop, which is a stop and frisk, which is what the gentleman was talking about in that video that I brought up. And I just really thought it was interesting. Even going further than that, though, is this. I found that the website that actually posted that, let me get the screen to refresh here. I'm going to let the narrator read since I'm coughing so much. It's the season. I blame it on the season. That's the reason. But let me twist some knobs right here real quick. Actually, I got to press a button. And what I'm going to do is play the narration on this from the website, from the earlier video that I posted that showed the nice timeline, which is, good information. And there's a book that's going to be coming out from this website called DeleteLaws.com. Delete Laws with a Z, LAWZ, DeleteLaws.com, and on the About page. And apparently there's a book that's available that they put out called Legally Departed. And what I did, because I saw on the graphic that I played earlier on the video, the logo Delete Laws, and I went to the site, and this is what I found on it right here. I would screen share it, but I actually have it on a separate computer, a separate device right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually play the audio from it through narration.
Are 4 basic missions. The devastating impact of Terry versus Ohio on the civil liberties of all Americans, especially if you happen to be a Black American, cannot be understated. This ruling, and the laws stemming from it, effectively and unequivocally places greater value on the safety. In fact, greater value is placed not the actual safety but on the belief of a threat to or fear for the safety of members of law enforcement, even those with a documented record of racial discrimination and/or allegations of serious misconduct including excessive use of force, than on the lives of American citizens, especially the lives of Black Americans, which has resulted in government-sanctioned murder of Black and Brown Americans in the years following. Until 1964, the primary function of the Supreme Court was to deny the civil liberties of Black Americans. Then, with the passing of the Civil Liberties Act, its ability to do was effectively curtailed, for the first time in history. However, Supreme Court did not wait long to resume its most ardent objective, to deny blacks equal treatment and rights under the law, c. Which is why, in 1968, SCOTUS ruled to place greater worth and more value on officers' safety than on the lives of its citizens, more specifically, on the lives of Black Americans. Extensions of Terry versus Ohio, aka, death laws, South Dakota versus Opperman. This is not merely preposterous, it is obscene and must change. The only thing that our Supreme Court hears cases about is our civil liberties. Because the Supreme Court only hears cases about our civil liberties, we have the right to elect the people who are in charge of our right to life, to liberty, to the pursuit of happiness and to due process. Because history shows that the Supreme Court has not ruled to protect these civil liberties, in fact, quite the opposite. For example, in Sitz versus Michigan State Police, they said, the empirical evidence shows that this program works. In the direct sunlight of this ruling and others, we can see that the Supreme Court does not defend our civil liberties. The main reason for this, we feel, is because there is a barrier between them and us. And that barrier is the president. We do not truly elect our president, he is an elitist from George Washington to Donald Trump, and that's not going to change. Then, this elitist chooses another elitist that his political party has vetted and chosen. We feel it is outrageous that we, the people, don't choose the judges who are, in fact, both the arbiters and guardians of our civil liberties, and propose this alternative in order to institute the balance of power that our Constitution guarantees. Montesquieu, Locke, and Rousseau agencies using the principles of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, John Locke and Montesquieu, we put checks and balances on police immediately by forming two agencies that will be the guardians of liberty and a third agency which will oversee and redraw the congressional district lines. John Locke said, "Show me the character of a man and I'll show you how much education he has." Let's listen to our Enlightenment thinkers. Keep the police, take half, or even 60% of their funding and put it into these two new agencies, the Montesquieu and the Locke. Then, move to a digital detainment system where police no longer arrest individuals. Ls. People willingly agree to go with police because they are being filmed. Only the criminally insane or the most uneducated will refuse. What that means for those individuals is mandatory education or psychiatric treatment to determine if they are criminally insane. The first agency is the Montesquieu. Every time a police officer has an interaction with anybody, this unit is deployed. We don't need 15 cops deployed at the same time, we need 4 cops and 4 auditors. They are on-site auditors who retrieve all the body cam footage, they have subpoena power and they have the power to arrest. The second agency is the Locke. This agency oversees district attorneys. Their primary function is to review district attorneys' cases. District attorneys in America get paid bonuses based on winning percentage, meaning, they get paid by the number of people that they put in cages. This must come to an end immediately. The third agency is the Rousseau, which will oversee and redraw the congressional district lines all across America. We suggest a double-blind study between major institutions which will determine these congressional district lines rather than the current system, which is flawed and blatantly corrupt. We want to get a scripted series on Netflix, Hulu, Disney, Amazon. However, we have stipulations as to who will fund us. We will not be handcuffed in any way, shape, or form. What we write on the page will be produced. We need a streaming deal because it's going to reach millions and millions of viewers, not only in the US but across the globe. Let's not make people wonder, let's let them see what digital detainment looks like with a high-end production. In a 10-episode scripted series that's pre-written. And we want to do 3 things with the series. I show the real history of the United States. 2 show how it is now, today. 3 show what a future history looks like with digital detainment and education instead of prisons. Where, you can't go home but all you have to do is learn this and you can leave, that's the point. And, it is not going to be a prison, it's going to be a gigantic city. A city where you can have relationships, where you can bring your family, where you can have a job, etc. When you lock a person in a cage for 15, 20 years, they are ruined. They are ruined for themselves and they are ruined for us. If somebody is that bad, they can go live in a city where, instead of bars and guards, there are video cameras. But, they get to have interpersonal relationships, they get to have a job, they get to sleep in their own bed, they get to have a fork and a knife, they are treated like humans instead of animals. Only the criminally insane will hurt and kill people when they are put into a regular city.
Well, if you can pardon the mispronouncements, I'm showing on the screen where this information came from deletelaws.com/about. That's delete, common spelling, laws, LAWZ.com, about, for my listeners out there. All right, getting ready to take another break for about 5. And probably we'll wrap this up because I think I might have touched in on what I wanted to touch in on. Let me cue the music because it sounds rather quiet in here. Be right back. Be right back in about 5. Bolster your immune system, help alleviate stress. Take in those minerals and vitamins that you really need. Nutrients like vitamin B, omega fatty acids 3, 6, and 9, and many more nutrients. More Beauty now offers hemp seed oil. We all know that health is wealth. We must do all we can to maintain it. More Beauty offers 100% hemp seed oil, a natural option. Hemp seed oil, available from More Beauty. Order yours today from theembassyofthemoors.org. Theembassyofthemoors.org. back at it. I probably won't go too much longer. We'll just have to wait and see how things go, how things roll right here. So the question is often asked about, if not all cops are bad, why don't the good cops do anything against or about the bad cops? Well, in a case-by-case situation, and I can only speak, from my own experience, there are those of us, well, I'm no longer in the fold, make that clear. But there are those out there who will speak up. But at the same time, it could be a matter of perception too, because if you happen upon a situation you know nothing about, unless it's something really egregious, it's not going to really do you any good to really say anything or speak up. I mean, because you don't know what the situation is involved with. Like if I showed in the earlier segment the ambush scenario that took place. If you rolled up on that, obviously that wasn't a situation where you can complain and say that the response was unnecessary. I mean, that's an extreme example because they're obviously under attack. But I can tell you that in my own experience, I did call foul. I did pull somebody aside and let them know how I felt about how they handled the situation, or I did intervene. And I also have had people tap me on the shoulder before when it came to a situation that got physical. Because the work does get physical. It can get physical. It will get physical as long as you're dealing with people that are not in their right mind. You're dealing with negative circumstances and you wind up having to steer them, hopefully, in a rightful direction. It's not always as clean and sanitary and buttoned up as people would like for you to think. Because police work is not easy. It's not easy to do. And I ended up choosing it because I didn't want to be a firefighter, because I figured that I would have persuasion over people versus flames. It's just a personal decision I made. And I won't be necessarily at all faulted for a career decision or a career that I decided to embark on in my 20s. I won't tolerate it. I mean, if anything, I just worked, I worked the street. I worked in a custodial environment. I wasn't working any kind of particularly special operation. Far less now. I'm just an average, everyday, ordinary civilian that happens to have had some experiences in a particular line of work that is and will be very dynamic. Can I possibly be of help to others to offer some insight and perspective from my experience, from my standpoint? I'll let other people tell me that. I won't elevate myself to that level, but I suppose I should. Because there's other people out here that are monetizing themselves, that have monetized their experiences in police work, that have written books. They go on the lecture circuit. They've become consultants. But along with that, it depends on who you know. All I'm setting out to do is just to share my prior experiences from the knowledge and training I've received in a particular line of work that is somewhat restrictive. True, it's a fraternal organization. True, it's closed off and it's rather exclusive. And I didn't always fit in because there were some that, well, they were encouraged to think outside of the box. But when I did it, it was a problem. Did I face racial animus myself? Yes, I did. I pretty much got it from all sides. And the ironic thing about my experience is that I had less problems with those on the street versus those that were in the fold with me that were administrators. Maybe they thought I was going to try to change things too much too fast. I'd learn later that, about this being a um, what is it, a Roman dominated principle, an aspect that you're representing the wrong construct, if you will. When I look into this from the standpoint of being a Moorish American, which I'd say if I were still affiliated on a day to day, it would probably, well, be a problem for me to declare that I was Moorish American. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it would, because it's considered radicalized thinking. But the one part that a major part I've come to understand of it is it's been established. There's not much that we can outwardly do to circumvent it. I can't say that I've tried my best and did my hardest to try to circumvent it and try to, bring about change. But I was there and I did help people in certain situations, through certain situations that I faced throughout my career. So I don't feel bad about that. I don't feel bad about that at all. Gone new chapters in my life with hopefully enough time left to go to make some kind of quantifiable difference. And if I could share some insight, in reflecting on my past career and reflecting on the profession itself, and if that helps anyone who might be listening to this, who might have seen this, then I've done my part. I was going to go into, the pressures of the job and, you know, stereotypical perceptions of those that are in this profession. But I think I'll hold off on that because I intend to make this a bit of a series. And I wanted to keep this, well, at least within the 2 hour range and not go on too long. But anyhow, that's it for now. I'm going to wrap things up. Hopefully, this was something of benefit to you in some way, shape, or form. And today being Tuesday, I'm going to get ready for Thursday's presentation. I'm not sure I do know what I'm going to talk about yet, but hopefully it'll be interesting. So thanks for tuning in, checking me out. And I don't see anybody in the queue that might want to have a discussion, but I'm willing to hold out for another few minutes. I'm going to go to I'm going to go ahead and shut things off. But if anybody, I'm going to still stay logged in for another 5 minutes. But if anyone wants to come in and have a conversation, drop me a comment in the chat, and we'll go on from there. But I'll be hanging out in the meantime, in between time. Otherwise, I'm gonna shut things down at the top of the hour if I don't hear from anybody soon. All right. Be right back. Oh, I know what I wanted to get into. Oh my goodness. You know what? I wanted to share this perspective of my training. I just ran across this. Actually, I had it up already. I just forgot to really touch on it. But this is what I learned through training about policing in America, or in the United States, rather. I learned about, or the teachings of, a Sir Robert Peel, because we know where policing actually has come from, right? I mean, yeah, people have said that it comes from um, slavery and patty rollers and all that. But what I learned about in the academy is not that. Of course, some people would probably say that. Of course, you didn't learn that. Silly. But I learned about. Hold on a second. Learned about Robert Peel in full, Sir Robert Peel, second Baronet. Born February 5, 1788, Bury, Lancashire, England. He died July 2, 1850. British Prime Minister, 1834, 1835, 1841 to 1846, and founder of the Conservative Party. Interesting. Okay. Peel was responsible for the repeal in 1846 of the Corn Laws that had restricted imports. All right, I'm not going to go through the whole biography here, but I want to pinpoint to you, because that's where the name Bobby's comes from. Is from Sir Robert Peel. So what he had established through, here it is right here. Let me see. I'm skimming down here as I read on. Okay. So apparently, his first task was to meet the long-standing demands in Parliament for a radical reform of criminal laws. He then proceeded to a comprehensive reorganization of the criminal code. Between 1825 and 1830, he effected its fundamental consolidation and reform, covering 3/4 of all criminal offenses. Rising crime statistics, though, convinced him that legal reform should be accompanied by improved methods of crime prevention. In 1829, he carried through the Metropolitan Police Act, which set up the first disciplined police force for the Greater London area. As a result of Peel's efforts, the London police force became known as Bobby's Boys, and later simply as Bobby's. It's pretty interesting about that part. But he is known in law enforcement training as being the founder of modern policing in the United States, or in America, or the United States, whatever you want to term it. That is who I heard about. That's what I studied, right? And there are principles that he brought forth. Let me see, 2, 3. Yep, there are basic 9 principles, right? Sir Robert Peel's principles of law enforcement. The basic mission for each police is to each police exists. Let me read that over again. The heading is under Sir Robert Peel's principles of law enforcement. The basic mission for which police exist is to prevent crime and disorder as an alternative to the repression of crime and disorder by military force and severity of legal punishment. The ability of the police to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police existence, actions, behavior, and the ability of the police to secure and maintain public respect. The police must secure the willing cooperation of the public and voluntary observance of the law to be able to secure and maintain public respect. The degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminishes proportionately to the necessity for the use of physical force and compulsion in achieving police objectives. The police seek and preserve public favor, not by catering to public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolutely impartial service to the law in complete independence of policy and without regard to the justice or injustice of the substance of official laws, the substance of individual laws, rather, by ready offering of individual service and friendship to all members of society without regard to their race or social standing, by ready exercise of courtesy and friendly good humor, and by ready offering of individual sacrifice in protecting and preserving life. The police should use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law or to restore order only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, and warning is found to be insufficient to achieve police objectives. And police should only the minimum should only use police should use only the minimum degree of physical force which is necessary or any particular occasion for achieving a police objective. The police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police are the only members of the public who are paid to give full time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the intent of the community welfare. The police should always direct their actions towards their functions and never appear to usurp the powers of the judiciary by avenging individuals or the state or authoritatively judging guilt or punishing the guilty. The test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with them. Those are the Principles of Law Enforcement by Sir Robert Peel. Whatever that might mean to you. Let's see here. Trying to pull something else up about that as well. But that's who I learned. That's who I studied about. Okay. Didn't go by any much of anything else because he was known to be the founder of modern policing in the United States. That being Sir Robert Peel. All right, y'all. Just went a little bit over, and we'll be back Thursday. All right. How about that? Learn more truth, learning more chronicles. I was your host today, Dolph Day. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you very much for listening. Here's my thanks page. Put that up again, and I'll be on my way, resuming the rest of my day. And we'll see you hopefully sooner than later. Peace.